All right, hey everybody, it's your girl Dominique Rebel, also known as Hotep Sophia, and this is the very first episode of Kingdom Building Basics for the Parallel Economy. This is something that is extremely near and dear to my heart. These videos I'm going to try and make about 30 minutes, and it's just some basic ideas for you to think about while you're trying to figure out where your place is going to be in the new economy, the parallel economy, whatever you call it. And I just want to give a little bit of my background and why this is important to me and what kind of stuff I've been working on in this realm. And I think that will give some people an idea of how they can get started and what skills they already have that they can use. So my background is in it is in business. I've been a business owner since I was 18. I grew up, learning about businesses and selling candy and stuff like that, and baking and selling stuff and inventing stuff, making up stuff. Like that's sort of my background. I've been always been a crafter, and so when I went to college for my undergraduate degree, I got a degree in African American Studies and Family Studies, which have nothing to do with business. And so I went into working in the foster care industry. And the one thing I work with teens, and the one thing I realized working with teens is that they don't need another government person to intervene. What they really need are skills, and not just skills where you can be a nurse or whatever like that, go and work for someone. They really needed skills where they could work for themselves, because if you are a teen mom and you have a baby, it's kind of hard to always go to work because your kid may be sick or blah blah blah. You might not have a babysitter, daycare is a mess, it's a lot of like issues. And so I came out of that experience with a desire to help people be able to figure out how to get into business. So while I was working at the group home, I got my master's degree in business, and then instead of going right into a doctorate program, I wanted to see, okay, well, what are the different options? How do these businesses work? So I went and worked for a business owner. And I worked for a restaurant owner, and she owned a boutique, and she was a serial entrepreneur. And so I got to see what that looked like. And not just being a serial entrepreneur, but being a successful serial entrepreneur, because I was also a serial entrepreneur, but some of my stuff was more successful than others. But I always had very strong convictions that would keep me from engaging in business activities the way that other people would, and it didn't bother them, but it really really bothered me. So like, for example, I did a lot of network marketing because I like the idea of helping out your friends and family, and I like the idea of buying being able to sell the products that you use. And I think those are two very key skills in building the parallel economy. However, um, moving forward, we started a freight brokerage business about a year ago, and so far it's been 100% unsuccessful. 100%. I have never had a business be so unsuccessful. And so now I'm starting to see the other side of it, because it doesn't matter if you have a lot of training, it doesn't matter if you have resources, it doesn't matter if you have contacts. When you get into certain kinds of businesses, um, it's more so about the timing and knowing whether the timing is right for the business that you're getting into. And so we started our freight brokerage with the idea that Trump was going to be in office. And so when that didn't materialize, really should have switched strategies. But I didn't know that it was not going to happen. Like, I had no idea. So I ended up, we sort of stuck with this thing. And so recently, I started to switch strategies a little bit, and I was given some really good information. So now I'm working on my life insurance license, and of course now our freight brokerage stuff is starting to pick up because we started doing other stuff. So it's kind of like one of those things. And so me personally, I have been thinking about all of these things for a very long time, since I was 18. I started my first business. And one thing that I found out, and that I gathered, is that there are a lot of everybody wants to be a business owner. It's not like everybody you talk to, they have a dream, and their dream does not include working for someone else. So that's, I think, a very important concept, just when you're thinking about a parallel economy, is that everybody has it inbred into them, especially Americans, that they want to be entrepreneurs, because all of our grandparents were and our great grandparents were. They may have had a job, but 9 times out of 10, they were entrepreneurs. They worked for themselves, or they worked for somebody, and they had, their farm or their garden or their skill or whatever, their trade on the side that they used to make money. So in my family, my grandmother was a domestic, which is an entrepreneur. She had to go out and find her own clients, and then when she had the clients, she had to go to their houses and clean them and all that stuff. But she still even had a business on the side where she would bake and she would cook for people. They would bring her the turkeys, they would give her some money, and it wasn't a lot of money she was making off that because she didn't go to the commercial route. However, it was something that she loved. And my grandfather, um, I don't know if anybody remembers those big boob TVs, but he used to fix those. So he had a shop, and in his shop downstairs, he would fix. He had all the little parts, and people would bring him this stuff, and he would fix it and give it back to him. Again, it wasn't enough money to, make him super rich, but it was a skill that he had, so that even if his own TV broke in his own house, at least he could fix it. He could do it for friends and family, so on and so forth. So it's inbred into all of us to have a skill, a trade, a hobby, something like that that can make us money. And so the idea behind this kingdom building basics is that you can use that skill or hobby or talent or whatever it is to build the kingdom in the parallel economy. And so people like me, I have been very, very hesitant to get involved in online business in general, because I knew that at any moment somebody could, find the stuff that I like, that I make or create or whatever offensive, and they could get me banned. When one of my first businesses was, I used to make lotions and soaps and body butters, and I started to get extremely fearful that someone would break out or have some sort of allergic reaction to my products. And so I went looking for insurance, and of course I couldn't find insurance. This is like 2003, and I had no resources like people who did that kind of thing. And so that was a huge problem for me. So I actually stopped my business because I did not want to be held liable for if something happened to somebody, because I knew that people didn't always know what they were allergic to, and people are, excited to sue people and all types of stuff. And I, especially being from near DC, I just became extremely concerned about that. And then another thing I became concerned about is that my resources and my network, and in the DC area, if you are not in a fraternity or sorority, and you don't go to a mega church, whatever the case may be, you don't have the right last name, your network is nothing. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have, how much education you have, how great your product is. If you are not tied in some kind of way to one of these things, you are not really a person anyone's going to pay attention to. And I ran into a lot of that. And even when I went to work for another entrepreneur, I felt that um, my lack of connections was really, really causing me a problem from trying to advance on what I was even doing on my own at that time. So I've been really, really deep down into the whole ethical problem of business, and then the concept of starting a business where you are, and then the concept of having a Christ-centered business, and not, engaging in usury, or and offering a product that was a solid product that had a lot of research behind it, and it was a good product, and also giving people products that I would use. So I have took all of that information and combined it into some ideas that I know will help people trying to figure out what to do in this new economy. Because as the old system continues to break down, you're going to have to find new things to do. And one of the problems with finding new things to do is that you think you have to get licensed or I'm sorry, I don't know what that sound is. You think you have to get licensed or you have to get, pay a lot of money and the skills or whatever the case may be. And that may be true, but there are other ways of accomplishing what you want to do with what you have. So one of my first I used to do audio, so I don't know if you've ever heard of Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, but I got a lot of my start with those individuals and the business philosophy that they would provide. And that foundation is actually has been a really good foundation for me because they were all very successful. And Jim Rohn specifically, and Zig too talked a lot about God and incorporating God into not just having it like on the sideline, but using the the words of the Bible, the concepts of the Bible within your business. And maybe that's sort of like an abstract thing that I just took from it, but that's really been my foundation and where I come from on the theories of business philosophy. So I have my own, unique business philosophy, and it starts with taking your skills, talents, abilities, and hobbies and starting where you are and turning it into a business just with what you have. Not going out and buying more stuff, not going out and, getting more training or more this or more that or whatever the case may be, but literally just starting with what you're interested in and your already hobbies that you have and figuring out how you can make money from those things. That is what the parallel economy is about, and that's what we have to move to. So there are people who are interested in health and wellness and fitness and stuff like that. There's a way you can just start with what you have and get to where you're trying to go. And so, over the course of these episodes, those are things that I'll be talking about in more detail. But the first thing that I want to talk about in this episode, and so we've got about 15 minutes left. So, one of the things I want to stress to people is when you're trying to build a business, you do want to start with some resources. So if you haven't been fired from your job, or whatever the case may be, don't quit your job to start a business. You want to start with as many resources, financial resources as you can. And also, if you have a job, you have potential clients or you have at least testers, anything, like you have people who will give you feedback on your work. And that's a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have is that they don't have people to give them feedback because their circle is so small. That's how entrepreneurs really tend to operate. And so when you have such a small circle that you can't get feedback, it's really hard to make improvements to your product or to figure out what's wrong with your product, especially when it comes to pricing or quality or just trends. You need the feedback from people. So if you are in a position where you have a job, you want to maintain that so that you can maintain that feedback, and continue and so that you can continue to improve your product. And if you just keep that in mind, like, okay, you don't want to give up your business, your job until you absolutely have to. Where you're making more money on your business than your job, it's interfering, whatever the case may be, that's when you want, and even then you want to try and cut your hours back first, or if you can, now a lot of people can work remote, you still want to maintain your job if you can, because as an entrepreneur, you need multiple revenue streams. The name of the game is multiple revenue streams. You want to have money coming in from multiple directions. Because you do need to spend all the money. That's another problem. So, but that's for a different episode. So you want to have multiple revenue streams, and with those multiple revenue streams, you will be able to reinvest into your business. And so if you, you quit your job to start your business, you're losing a revenue stream that you are going to need. You will need that revenue stream. Even if it's for a short amount of time, whatever the case may be, you always want to have multiple revenue streams. And that's where I made my mistake with our most recent business as a freight brokerage, because I didn't have multiple revenue streams. I just went all in on one revenue stream. And now I know with 100% certainty that is the absolute wrong thing to do. You never want to have one revenue stream. You always want to have multiple. So just keep another, like a little side job, or something that will just pay you and you just show up, whatever. You want to keep that going for as long as possible. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as far as revenue streams are concerned, is that or just thinking about how to start your business is concerned, you want to, again, start with something that you're interested in. Now, if you are interested in something that's really expensive, or you need specialized tools for you that you don't already have, so on and so forth, what you want to try and do is outsource that. So if you are interested in laser engraving and you don't have a laser engraver, instead of going out and buying a laser engraver, you find someone who already has one and you contract them to do some products for you. The reason you want to do that is so that you can product test, because that, again, is one of the biggest issues when people are putting out products. Even people who do like YouTube streaming or whatever the case may be, you want to start with something on the table that you can actually refer back to. So like, I just started streaming in the last year or so, right? I started out on Break the Rules, great show, I love it. And then I liked, well, not true. I actually had a radio show on radio in Orlando, and I was sort of like a producer for the show. So that's a long time ago. I forgot about all that. So when I got back into this area of media, I started out with Break the Rules. And I invested in some equipment, but I didn't invest in a lot of equipment because I wasn't really sure if I was going to do it. I was still hemming and hawing. And so just recently I've gotten all the equipment I need to stream. So like, now I have a computer, I have a light, I have a backdrop. I've always had microphones because I'm a singer. So you always keep your own microphones, but I've got a whole, sound system set up so that I can, do my own sound and stuff like that, which is important to me. So those are the type of things that you don't want to get all at once. You want to figure out what you want it to do so that you're not wasting money buying stuff that you don't really need. Or in the example of the laser engraving, I'm only talking about laser engraving because I started looking at a laser engraver, and I'll be looking into one, a laser engraver and a 3D printer, because I had already been thinking about a 3D printer, but I didn't know you could get a device that did both. So I just started looking into them. So and apparently laser engraving is like a big deal now. Like it's super cool. So but it's a lot of work, and so you don't want to buy a laser engraver and you've never used CAD before. It's going to be a big learning curve on that one. You want to really have it, sort of pared down how you intend to do this before you get started. And so that's why the laser engraving business is a good example. We'll probably use that going forward. So that is to say, you want to get some test products. You want to see what people think. You want to look at the market. You want to figure out where you would sell. You want to think about your customer. Profiling your customer is one of the top things that you have to do right after you have the idea. Then you want to profile your customer. Where is your customer? And since I always talk about starting a business where you are, you want to look at who you can sell to around you. Like, this is why it's good to have products that you would buy yourself, because it's much easier to profile yourself, you as the customer, than to try and imagine some person who would buy it. So when I worked at the restaurant, a lot of what we did was, since my boss and I were consumers of restaurants, we went to a lot of restaurants, we would take those ideas and see if we could bring it back to our restaurant. And that is one way that you are able to profile your customer, is if you are the customer, what are you looking for in these type of products, and if you were going to buy this, what would you want it to look like? That's very, very important. And the better you can nail that down prior to investing any money in your products, the more successful you will be, because a lot of times people spend money on products to buy stuff to make, just to try it, but then they don't know who their customer is. Like, I have a few products in development that I've been working on and thinking about. So I spend more time thinking about my products than I do actually putting them out. And then when I do put them out, I really have a cohesive thought process about them. Like, I do personal baking. So why would I choose personal baking? Well, one thing I was looking at the restaurant is that there was a lot of waste. And I this was like a few years ago when I worked at the restaurant, but one thing I knew that at some point moving forward, all of this waste was going to be unacceptable. It's going to be untenable. We weren't going to be able to continue to waste food at restaurants the way that we do right now. So the way that you deal with that is you just do stuff to order, and then you learn how to preserve it. So a few things that I took from that thought process is, when I bake my breads, I freeze them. So when I have a customer that wants bread, I have the product ready, but I just take it from frozen and I give it to them, and I explain to them the thawing process and then what they can do and all of that, which is, to me, there's no waste. So I'm not baking bread, and I don't have to wear myself out always baking too. I can just bake it all at once, stick it in the freezer. When I get my clients, tell them how to do it, boom, 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 and it's over. So that's one thing that took me a long time to figure out, though. That wasn't, I woke up and I figured out that was the process. No, that was a lot of back and forth and testing, and then refrigerating the bread and seeing what the problem with refrigerated bread was, and this and that, and then, doing more research on how to preserve it, and just general preservation processes. And so that was a lot of work, and that took a year or so to really figure out. So, but in the meantime, I had been selling my bread, just baking them and selling them, baking them and selling them, like, to individual people. Like, they want a loaf of bread, they'll be like, "Oh, Dominic wants some bread. All right, cool." Or I need a cake, or I need this, I need that. It wasn't consistent, but it was enough for me to get feedback on my products. So I did it sort of like all together. I would product test, then I would get feedback, and then I would post it and see how it looks. Then I would look at the prices, and because if you notice on my if you go to my Blab timeline, you'll see that I have a link to my menu, but there are no prices. Well, the reason why there are no prices is because that's not how I operate. I do packages. So I can't tell you how much each individual thing costs, because I want to know all the things that you want, and then I want to put it in a package price. Well, why is that? Because if I was, again, using myself as a customer, if I was buying it, I know that I'm not going to buy just a loaf of bread. When I went to the store, I used to buy bread from the store. What would I buy? I would buy a loaf of bread. I would buy some bagels. I would buy some flatbreads, maybe. And I would buy like some sweetbreads. So in the course of a week, every week I might buy these four things. So instead of going to the store and buying these four things, if I can tell, if I'm the customer, I would tell the person I was buying from, look, I want to buy a loaf of bread, I need some bagels or English muffins, I need some flatbreads for pizza, and I need something sweet to have for dessert or whatever. And I would want to buy it all in the package. So using myself as the customer, that's why I came up with the package idea. And so when people tell me I want this, I want that, I want this, and I'll just tell them, okay, you want these three things. I kind of know what it costs to produce them. And, then if I have to ship it, whatever, I put it all together and I tell you how much it's going to cost. If I don't have to ship it, even better. I don't have to put it all together. I can just tell you, okay, well, if you want a loaf of bread, my loaves of bread are $5. Okay? But if you want a loaf of bread, if you want two loaves of bread and a banana bread, well, that'll be 20, because my banana breads and stuff are usually about $12. But if you're going to get a if you're going to get two loaves of bread, that means I only have to bake it once, because you can kind of bake it all together, save myself some energy, blah, 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 blah. That's how I work it. So, but again, I've been like in business a long time, so I can do all this stuff in my head. If you can't do it in your head, you just write it down. It's not a problem to write things down. You should write down as much as possible. Me, I can just do a lot of it in my head. This is just this is how I am, because I've been like this so long. So that's just something to think about. Like, you don't have to sell your product in the same way that everyone sells them. And maybe in the next episode or so, a couple ones, we'll talk about revenue models. But I think that's a little bit too much for the first episode. I just want people to, in this first episode, really think about what they're good at, what are your skills, what are your talents, what are your hobbies, and from your skills, talents, and hobbies, what can you sell? What can you market? That you don't have to actually go out and buy anything new to do. So if you are good at exercise, if you like to exercise, that's your thing. An idea for you is to just start out by making YouTube videos. You make a video, post it. That's a thing. You're not going to make any money from that right now, but it gets you on the path so that you can figure out, well, if I want clients, or if I want to stream, or blah, 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 how do I do this? And that's how you take all of your steps. So it's really, really important to start with the first thing and then work your way through. You don't have to start by investing, like I say, a ton of money in a bunch of stuff. You don't have to start by investing um, or spending money on a bunch of products. That's not where you start. Where you start is in your mind. You get your mind wrapped around your project, and then you move from there. And no, it's not going and registering a business, not the first step. No, it's not coming up with a name, not the first step. The first step is to figure out what it is you're passionate about, what it is that you would do even if no one paid you to. That's your first step. And once you have taken that first step, then you're ready to move on to your next step. And that first step does take a while. I mean, you may try a few different things until you find something that you really, really like. And don't worry about if you don't know how it's going to make you money or whatever. That's in your revenue modeling. Then once you know what it is that you want to do, then you can tinker it down to something that someone will want to buy. But you first start with what you want to do, what it is you're passionate about, what it is you're trying to accomplish in your life, and how you can take that and make some money from it. Just in general, how would you make money from that? So if you are a former doctor or nurse, and you don't know anything about naturopathic medicine, it's free to go to Pinterest and to look up what naturopathic medicines do. And it's absolutely free. And you just start with problems that you have. Well, I have this problem, I have that problem, I'm on this medication, I'm on that medication. What are the natural alternatives to help solve the problem that I have? And so what you may find out is that, well, like a girl I was talking to today, she has headaches. So I asked her, what's your magnesium intake like? She didn't know. She doesn't take magnesium. She doesn't know that magnesium are connected to headaches. So I told her, I was like, it could be that you have a magnesium thing, or now that I'm thinking about it, it could be that she had pressure problems, because I get really bad headaches when my pressure is high. So when we finish this, I'm going to send her a message so that she can check on that, because her pressure may be high. And what I do for my pressure when it's high is I'll take vitamin K, D, and potassium. because the potassium wool acts like a water pill, and it pulls all of the excess water out your body, which pulls all that extra sodium out. So that's what I do, and it only happens when I eat fast food. So now I have certain fast food, and it has to be over an extended amount of time. So now I've got it down where I've I've figured out all these different steps. Well, even if it's just that, that's a product you could sell to somebody. Like figuring out all these different diagnosis steps. Even if you just sell it as not sell it, but you offer it as a article on a website. That's something. You know what I mean? So you don't go for straight for what is going to make me money. You start with what are you passionate about, and then you work it backwards because there's a way to make money off of everything. Remember, this is what our ancestors did for hundreds of years before the criminals came along and monopolized the usury business. They made money off whatever it is they were interested in, and they sold it to their friends and neighbors. So this is a tried and true tradition in America and across the country. This is a tried and true tradition. It is literally inbred into you. But if the you know really the more education you are, the further away from that you get. So you have to work on it to figure out what it is. So today's homework assignment, of course, try to give a little assignment, is to just think about or write down not your why, but what you want your life to look like. What ideally, what would your life look like? What would you do if money weren't an issue? Let me write that down. I'm going to forget that. When I come back next week, I'll be like, I don't remember what the homework was. Here we go. That doesn't work. Sorry. First homework assignment. What would you do, or what would your life look like if money weren't an issue? And in coming up with just that concept of what would your life look like if money weren't an issue, then you will be able to figure out what it is you would do even if you weren't paid. So that's where you find your passion. It's what would your life look like. So some people, even if what would their life look like, you ask them that question, well, maybe they love dogs, so no matter what, they would be walking their dog, they would be out with their dog, some people like to make stuff for their dogs, or they like to dress their dogs up, or they like to take pictures of their dogs, or whatever. You just know for a fact, if money weren't an issue, you would be spending time with your dog. So how do you turn that into a revenue generating business? That's another step. But first, you want to identify what that thing is. So for me, there's a lot of things I would do with money. I mean, my life is, one thing for sure is I would be baking and I would be eating. So that's why I have sort of surrounded myself around that. Another thing I would do, me personally, is I'm a singer. So if money weren't an issue, I'd probably have band practice 2 or 3 nights a week with my band, and we'd go out and do free shows down by the river. That's a thing that's really important to me. What's another thing that I would do? I would be reading and researching, looking up, Black history to try and teach it to my kids and to my family and friends. These are things that I care about deeply. No matter what, I would be doing them. So that's why I've structured my business and my sort of kingdom building project around those things, because that's what matters to me. And it took me a long time to really boil it down to these basic things, but the longer you think about it, the easier it is for you to come up with it. However, we're on the time clock, so I don't want you to think about it forever. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about what the next step is. And of course, these things change over time. So you may start in one arena, and it is okay to stop one business and to start another business. People do it all the time. That's another thing about a business basic is, if one, this is why you also the revenue, the streams, if one stream isn't generating revenue, you have another stream that is generating revenue, and maybe you'll come back to that other one, or maybe you won't. But the more skills you have, the more potential revenue streams you can have. So you want to really um, have all of these things sort of thought about, laid out, in your plan, so that you can create a cohesive business strategy for yourself, and to make yourself a valuable member of the parallel economy. So this has been Kingdom Building Basics. This is the very first episode, and this is all about starting with the skills, talents, hobbies that you already have, and turning those into revenue generating businesses. And that is exactly the thought that we need moving forward, is what do I have? What skills do I already have that I can use to make money from? What would I do if money weren't an issue? And how can I help my friends and neighbors with what they're trying to do? Because one thing about it is, if the whole system goes down, there might not be an internet. So you really have to have something that is useful to your friends and neighbors, the people that you have direct access to. And that's another conversation for another day. So, again, remember, the homework assignment is to write down and think about, what would your life look like if money weren't an issue. And as you come up with that, you'll be able to see the things that you're really, really passionate about, the things that you would do no matter what, and the things that mean the most to you in life. And we're going to take those things that mean the most to you and turn those into revenue generating businesses. So, again, this is your girl, Dominique Rebel, also known as Hotep Sophia. If you want links to my Gab stream or whatever, you go to hotepsophia.com, and I've got my links there. And there's some stuff that's not up yet, but always come to I'm primarily on Gab. Come to my Gab timeline. Shoot me a message. I am going to be taking clients for this. I'm still working out some of the details in my mind, because I don't want to. I don't do usury, and I don't want to overburden people, because I know that it's a lot of stuff going on right now. So this service is a service that I am going to be offering to work one-on-one with clients. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to my Gab page and shoot me a message, and we can talk about how to set this up. And my one-on-one coaching, I've done a lot of it, and it has been extremely successful. People take a lot away from it. It's sort of like inspired coaching. So I listen to the problems that people have, and I think about it, and I really put it into like a prayer circle, and then I come back with divine inspiration on how you can really resolve some of these issues, especially within your business. So this is definitely a service I'm going to offer. So again, stay tuned for episode 2. Don't forget your homework. And we'll see you next time. Peace and blessings to you.